Thank you for joining today's session. Let's start with a quick meditation. And our theme today is surrender. Whatever stress, whatever burdens, whatever weight that we have accumulated throughout the day from various incidents, various situations, different thought patterns, self created thoughts, whatever it is that has become too heavy on us, that is not letting us feel at ease, and we aren't able to let go either. Let's bundle all of it and hand it over to time, to faith, to a higher supreme power that is well equipped to handle all of this burden and weight. We do not have to deal with so much. We do not have to carry so much within ourselves. We can take it and just surrender, pass it on. Pass it on to that authority of time. So we become light. We become free. And are able to live in the present moment. Because the moment all wrong things happen, unfavorable, undesirable, in those moments we do not feel as burdened as much as when those moments have passed, because we are carrying the effect of that moment with us, thinking, rethinking, resisting, not accepting. We are so deeply affected by it that we, in our own mind, have increased its weight tenfold. That is why it's necessary to be aware of the present moment, to be aware that this present second, this very moment, nothing exists except for what I am carrying in my mind. Outside, nothing exists. Instead of making my present moment an equation of the past, let me re engineer my mind to live in the present and make it the equation of the very present second. Anything about the past, discard it, surrender it, hand it over to time, to universe, to any higher power that we worship. Just simply hand it over. And save ourselves from the grief, sorrow, suffering of carrying that burden that we ourselves are unable to deal with. So hand it over to time. Become free, and we allow ourselves to be in the present moment. Just constantly practicing and reminding ourselves that this present moment I have to enjoy, I have to acknowledge, I have to bring myself back into living in the present moment. Only then we will truly realize that life is a majority of pleasant good present moments with very few bad moments. And if we allow those bad moments to pass away as every second passes, and we learn to live in that present second, then the duration of the bad moments is very less compared to the duration of good moments. If we evaluate our entire lifetime with this perspective, come to this realization that living in the present moment is the real key to a happy, peaceful, successful life. Take a deep breath, look around. The present moment is really beautiful. So become aware of the present second and live life second by second. Let's bring our attention back to the session and begin with a clean slate of mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Rakhi, for the wonderful meditation. So, hi everyone. Just allow me a minute. Are you able to hear me clearly?
Yes, Prashant.
Okay, thanks for confirming. So, before starting, I would like to thank again to Sister Rakhi. So, the meditation on the present moment was really beautiful. So, I would also like to mention of a book which talks about the same, if you have read or not, which is like The Power of Now, written by a German author, Eckhart Tolle, where he shares his own spiritual experience, how being in the present moment helped him eliminate a lot of burden that he was carrying, not physical burden, but just a burden over the mind. And he was able to relax himself so well by just allowing himself to transition through the present moment. So, if you get a chance to explore that book and read it out, that would be certainly good for you. Would be a good experience for you. So, thank you everybody for joining today. Let's get started. So, welcome to the call. I hope you are doing well. So, today we'll move a step ahead. So far, in our last session, we had targeted a data set which was an Olympics, but now we'll do a more deep dive on an actual study, which is known as Chicago Crime Study. So if you know, Chicago is is a location in United States, and this data set is publicly available. So if you want to do a study on how the crime rate in Chicago has trended over the last few years, that data set was available to do that, and we have done a couple of exploration around that. So I will also share you that public reference where you can take a look and deep dive and try to understand that better. And so today we will be basically doing some data analysis, data extraction, processing, and then we'll be visualizing the KPIs, the the key metrics, the key insights that we will be able to extract from the Chicago study. So I hope you are all excited about that. So let's get started. I will share my screen. So are you able to see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So here, if you look at this particular notebook, Jupyter notebook, we are doing analysis over some of the Chicago data sets that were available to us on public. So this data set is basically from 2005 to 2017. So all the data that is all the crimes that have happened between 2005 and 2017. So all the data was publicly available. So this is a huge files. So one CSV file is of approximately 500 MB. So if I try to aggregate the size for this total data, it is close to, should be more than a GB or so. So we will be analyzing a GB of data. And since you know that if this file is in 500 MB, then managing this data in Excel could be so tedious. But let me still take you to the data sets. So here we have our all the input files. If I try to aggregate, let me see uh, what is the total. So if you look at this particular file, it is close to 500 MB. And opening this file in our Excel sheet would also take a lot of time. So since you see it does not directly open up, it starts to load it gradually. So it is taking a lot of time, and let's take a look once this opens it up. So each file has approximately 10 lakhs rows. So you can understand how many. Yeah, you also get this pop-up. The data set is too large for the Excel grid. If you save this workbook, you will lose data that wasn't unloaded. So this was to showcase you what is the limitation of Excel and the level of data that it can process. So fortunately, we have 3 different sheets instead of one. And if it had been only a single sheet, I doubt if it could have even opened it But if I will press OK, then it will be able to load some of the data. And so here you will see that there are all the cases data we have available for the Chicago. I'm not sure whether that is state or a city, but yeah, for that location, we have different kind of crime data available. So we have lot many rows also here, which is close to 23, along with the location data as well. So let's take a look at the number of rows. So you look here, it is close to 10 lakh rows, which it has opened up the Excel sheet. And 10 lakh rows is something which is very, very huge. Your tools like Excel would not be able to help you analyze this data. If you try to analyze it through Excel, that would be a lot of overhead for Excel. All right. So I hope with this part you understand the complexity of managing a huge amount of data with these legacy tools. So I will now skip this part. So now what we are doing, we are using a combined data frame for all of these three inputs, three crime data, to aggregate it together into a data frame and then further do our analysis. So before we start off, let me show you how our analysis for today will look like. So how we are going to analyze the crime rate is, you will see some dashboards below. So this would be somewhat interesting and you would be curious to see, understand how this has been generated. But this is how basically studies are done. Some researches are done. So big universities like IIT or other universities, they basically like big universities, they kind of do heavy like researches and then try to analyze a lot of data. Okay, and then you will see some more trends. So here you see overall trends for the kinds of crime that have happened in Chicago. So arson, assault, burglary, criminal damage, gambling. So it has generated a kind of a dashboard, or what say a trend, to showcase you, to help you understand in an easy manner like how has the crime rate varied in Chicago for a period of last close to 15 years. So this basically helps you understand and quickly uh, identify the right actions, or make the right decisions in order to basically go ahead about it. So let's say if you were a police officer and you were the administrative head of that particular state, then you would want to analyze what has happened in the last 15 years, and you have recently taken over Chicago as your area. So how would you strategize, and how would you decide upon how next you should plan, and which crime to focus on, so that that can be reduced further. So this basically talks about that, and so these are some of the dashboards that will look. So this would be a holistic exercise wherein we would try to do cover up all of these aspects: visualization as well as analysis, extraction, processing as well. All right. So I hope you must be excited for that. And before going over there, I think we were stuck on one of the last pivoting options during our last session. So let's also cover that before we start off with that. So I think during our last session, we wanted to identify the top teams with their participation rate, like what are the top countries which are participating into the Olympics. So we were struggling a bit on the pivot table field with the mentioning of the fields and putting it right. So here, this is the right way to do it. So we will perform a pivot table operation through this function, wherein we will be performing this operation over our data variable, which contains all the data, CSV data for the Olympics. And here we are giving index as team. So which means that we want to understand the team data. And then we are giving values as ID, which means that for every unique value that this particular team has in the CSV, try to count every unique value that is there. So it basically generates a unique count here, how many times United States is present in the data. So it basically generates a count for that. And after that, it basically sorts the count in the descending order. And then we get to know what are the top teams available here. And then here we are printing out the top 5. We can even change it to top 10, and then it would basically print out the top 10 countries as per their participation. So here you'll see that the last country is Hungary, and then second last is Australia, and then top one is United States. So I hope this clears you now on how to use the pivot table operation to basically identify this kind of trends. Any questions here? Okay, so I believe that helps you understand. So now I will move on to the Chicago crime study that we have here. So let me begin with the libraries that we are using for this particular study. So here we are using NumPy as a library. NumPy is basically a mathematical library which provides access to some sort of mathematical functions available, which can be used for doing heavy uplifting for heavy calculations, mathematical calculations. And then we are using pandas for data extraction and analysis. And then we are using matplot for data visualization. So all the charts that you see are coming from matplot. And now this is just a code which basically helps us visualize all of that on this Jupyter lab. This is not specific to other code, but if you're using Jupyter Labs, you might have to specify that. After that, what we are doing is we are using the read CSV function available under pandas to basically read our Excel files, not Excel files, CSV files for the various crime rates. So we are reading the first file, which is for having data from 2005 to 7, then from 8 to 11, and then from 12 to 17. So all of that data is being read into these 3 variables, crimes 1, 2, 3. And what we are doing is, so we are basically skipping wherever there is any bad line. So bad line means wherever the data might not be complete or data might be in an inappropriate format. So we are trying to skip those bad lines so that we only have the right data in our crimes variable. Now what we are doing is on step 3, we are trying to combine all of that data. Whatever we have captured in crimes 1, 2, and 3, we are trying to aggregate that data together into a different variable, which is crimes, and it consists of all the data together in this specific variable. And now we don't need to use 3 different variables. We can use just one variable wherein we have all the data for our 3 different CSV sheets. Now, if you would want to basically look at the data, then we can basically also use print and do crimes, and this will basically let you know what all data do we have available. So here we have date, ID, and then block, primary types of offenses. We have close to 20, we have close to 13 columns here. And these are the number of rows that you see here, which is 43 lakh rows. Yeah, this is 43 lakh rows, which is a huge amount of data. So this is not a very kind of a not a very ordinary data. So this is a huge data, and you can consider this as a good example of doing data analysis because we are trying to cover majorly all the aspects. So I will delete this cell for now. Now what we are doing is we are deleting these 3 crime variables that we had declared, because now we'll no longer need it because now all the data is present in crimes. So now it says data set is ready now, and currently, yeah, after we have removed the duplicates, we have close to these many rows available with 23 sections. Okay, no, where are we removing the duplicates? Okay, we are removing the duplicates here. So this basically shows us what is the count that we have as of now, which is 1, 10, 100,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh. Okay, so this is giving some different count. Not sure how. Okay, but let's assume that is okay. So I think, yeah, the correct count is here. So after the duplicates have been removed, it is now giving us the correct count here. It says here we are removing duplicates for every column which is ID and case number. So wherever it will encounter a duplicate field for an ID or it encounters a duplicate case number, it is going to delete that specific row. So which helps us clear 20 lakh rows, and then our basically overall data uh, becomes close to 43 lakh rows. So which is a great optimization. So this step is a part of data cleansing process, which is known as data pre-processing. So before we start analyzing our data, in analytics, in data analysis, there is a step known as pre-processing, data pre-processing. So all of these steps, preparing the data, hygiene, maintaining the data hygiene, cleaning up unnecessary data that may create unnecessary distractions during the analysis or disturbance during the analysis process. So we tend to do that. So after that, now we have optimized 20 lakhs of rows. This is our final data available with us. And out of those 23 columns, so when we had like printed that data, it was showing us 13 columns. Why it was showing like that? Because I had run this report once. So what I will do is I will now I will now, okay, just a minute. I will first of all run this cell. Now I will run this cell. So you will see this will take a bit of time. So it is trying to read all the data into these 3 variables. So it is taking some time. Let's allow it to read it and see how long does it take to read. So in 17 seconds, it read all the 3 data sources into these 3 different variables. Now we will basically combine all the data together into crimes, and then we will delete all the crimes variable. Now what we can do is, now we will try to look at again at the crime data set and see, sorry, we can directly use this crime.shape option also to see how long is the data. So it shows these are the number of rows and these are the number of columns. So now let me run this and look at the data directly. So here you will see that there are lot many rows. So it shows that now there are 23 columns and these many rows before we have removed the duplication. So now I will delete this part, and as this part is already validated, now here we are removing the duplicates, dropping duplicates for these ID and case number. And after that, it is giving us a count that this is the final uh, the data set size. So, but for that, we will have to run these cells as well. So it's taking a bit of time. Yeah, so it says this. Now, out of these 23 columns that we have, we don't need all the columns. They are just overhead for us. So what we can do, we can eliminate unnecessary columns for our analysis process to further cleanse the data. So what we are doing, we are dropping these column names wherever we find this as the unnamed case number, IUCR updated on year, FBI code, beat, water. So all of these columns we are dropping for now because we don't need it, which would basically simplify our data analyzing process. So now if I will trigger this, so I will now have only 13 columns available. So what I will do, I can now take a look again at the data set, which shows, just a minute. So it shows now we only have 13 columns available. All right, because we have dropped these many columns. And head 3. So this basically gives us the top 3 crimes. This is just a validation process. Like the data is basically available or not. It's getting represented in the right format or not. So here we are getting some of the cases from harassment for the harassment cases, handgun cases, and deliver crack cases. So this was just a validation step, not nothing much to actually look into this. So now let's come ahead. And now what we need to do is we now need to basically present this data wherein we want to look at the number of crimes that have happened per month for the last few years from 2005 to 2016. So for that, what we need to do is we need to basically prepare the data because the date that you will see. So I will, what I will do, if you look at this date field, you will see that it has a complete timestamp. It gives us the date and then it gives us a timestamp and what time it had happened, the case was basically logged. But this format may not be readable by Python. So we need to convert this date format into a readable format that can be easily understood by Python and that can further help us plot these graphs using Matplot. So what we are doing is here we are basically what we are doing is we are converting the crimes dot date. So this is the date column in crimes data frame. So what we are doing is we are converting it to a date format wherein the format of date would look like this. So which means it would look like the month, then date, then year, followed by this particular timestamp. I'm not sure what I am. M in minute, S means second. percentage P, it might mean PM or AM. So it will basically convert this into an appropriate format that is easily understood. And then we are basically creating that particular index for this date time that we have just converted. So we have the index handy. Now let's take a look at the basic details of crimes data set. It shows that the crime data set has these columns, and the details about various columns are that ID is an integer data type, date is a date time data type, and then for other you can see block, object, boolean, and float data type. Now what we need to do is, so what happens when there are more categories, we tend to optimize them. So let's say if you have more than 20 categories, but being a police officer, you don't want to focus more than 20 crimes. Okay, then what would you say? That put all the other crimes into a category which is known as others, but just show me the trend for the top 20 uh, like crime types that have happened in the past. So here we are doing the same. We are trying to compile up all the the non-primary cases into a category which is known as others. So what we are doing for that is, here we are trying to basically capture the data for this particular column which is known as location description. And for the location based crimes, we are trying to count what is the count as per the location description that has happened for all the cases, for for all the categories that are beyond 20. So we are not collecting the first 20. So you will understand it better in my this cell, wherein I will try to showcase what is happening exactly. So let's try to print the this particular data set first and see what is there. So if you look at here, so it basically print out the column which is location description. So this basically shows all the column details for the location description, wherein we are seeing multiple entries. All right, but it is showing 43 lakh of rows, which is not a good something, which is not something that I will be able to analyze manually. So I need to use some function that will help me aggregate all of this. So for that, I will use dot value count to understand what is the actual count for each category. So now if I will run it, so just a minute, I think that's counts. So now it gives me a count actually that now the length is optimized to 161, and it gives me a count that for street these many counts are there, for residence these many counts are there, and this is the descending order sequence. Now but before that, I think I need to also run couple of above cells which I've missed to run. So let me run them all. So we were here. Let me run this. We run this as well. So right now it's running. Let me run this now. Yeah, so this gives us this particular count. Now I want to only focus on this one. So this gives me this particular status wherein you see the count has updated to 141. I think there is some mistake I have done here. because of which there is some mistake I cannot see. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me try to run all the cells and then validate if the data is being shown correctly or not. So when you run, you can even run all the cells from here, restart kernel and run all the cells. Now it basically will give you status here that how many cells have been executed and how many are yet to be executed, along with the time being spent. So meanwhile it is running, feel free to unmute yourself and ask any queries that you may have. So far 6 cells have been executed. Okay, so seems the data is correct only. Yeah, we can come here. Where were we? Yeah, so we were here. And so like this, it is trying to capture all the data after the 20th category into this variable, which is location to change. And then we also are using another data frame where we are capturing data for description. So let's now look at what is description basically. So, okay, so it's already showing others now, right now. Yes. Okay, because it has executed all the cells. So to ensure that I'm in the right order, I will have to execute it again from here. Just allow me a moment. This one is taking actually a lot of time. All right. All right. Now you see the data has basically kind of changed. Why it has changed? Because here I had run all the cells. So it was showing the data which for which the last steps have already been performed. So I didn't want to do that. Now this is a correct count for the description. It is showing these are the value counts. But what we want to do is we want to identify what are the count beyond the 20 categories. So let's see what are the categories beyond 20. So for we will use this particular function and this shows the count after the 20, and there are close to 352 entries for that, which would be aggregated into a category known as others. So now let's perform this particular operation, then execute this particular cell, and now we'll delete this particular cell and come down below, and let's try to see what are the outcome of this, which will help us understand what are the basically all the categories. So these are all the categories that have been identified for under the location to change. And then let's try to look at this as well. So these are all the categories which have been identified again under this particular option. So we are gonna combine these entries into others. You will see the for that how we are doing it here. So here, take a look closely. So what we are doing here, we are using this crimes.log operation, and what we are doing is for the crime data set, wherever we are having location description column, so we are checking wherever there is an entry of location log to change field. So all the entries which are present as part of this data set, data frame, wherever it will find an entry in this particular column, and basically it will try to first of all locate this column. So crimes.columns, it is trying to locate where is this column in the CSV, and then after identifying that column, it will check whether if any values mentioned in this particular data set is matching or not. If it matches, then it will replace the value as other. So now all of our data would be categorized as other. Similarly, now what we are doing is for the description one, we are also doing the same operation. We are categorizing all the other categories as other. So let me execute this one now. I hope I had executed this one, and now let me execute this one. All right. Now, if I were to check if the operation has performed it accordingly, what I need to check is I need to check this particular variable now here, data set. So, sorry, not this, but basically, okay, so it says that now there are no object in the top category after the 20th. Now there are no more objects because they have been categorized into others. All right, and now, but if we were to see the top categories now, so we'll try to print this. Now it says that these are the categories wherein we have a other category here, wherein all the categories that we saw up have now been aggregated into this particular field. Now we only have 20 categories available. All right. Similarly, we can do for description and see what are the. So now we have another category here as well, wherein the other categories have been mapped together, and these are the other fields that we see. Now, why did we need that? To basically simplify our data analysis, because otherwise, if these number of aggregated rows that you see, they were separated before and there were lot many categories. So it would have been really a tedious and hectic task to do data analysis over that huge amount of data or categories. So this basically simplifies and cleanses our data analyzing process. Now, what we are doing is here we are basically uh, defining some of the columns as categorical. So there is an option in pandas wherein you can define a data set as categorical, which basically helps us simplify our analysis process using pandas. So I don't have much insight myself, like how this basically, what are the complete insight about this thing, but to you will understand it how this is happening. So this basically helps in whenever we want to perform any huge operation on these particular column, it would optimize the performance in the backend. So now coming to the most interesting part of this overall study, here is how we are basically creating our first chart, and wherein it showcases us the monthly trends for all the years between 2005 to 2016. But here I am not referring to any, you will be surprised to see I'm not referring to any crimes data set, and I'm not referring to any specific item within the sheet. How is then printing this column? So can anybody guess how is this column coming out when I'm not using the crimes anywhere within my this cell? Yeah, crimes is there, sorry. But I'm not using basically I'm not basically using any internal columns mentioned in the sheet within. If I execute it again, so it will take a couple of seconds, but then yeah, it prints it out. So what happens is you will see this resample function. So resample M. So M means month. So resample is an operation which is available uh, in Matplotlib. So it has a couple of options. So it has an option as M, Q, Y, where M means monthly, Q means quarterly, and Y means yearly, and D means daily. So here, if you wanted to understand the monthly data, we mentioned M, and it will automatically locate the date field inside the sheet, and by automatically locating the date field, it will identify that what month it belongs to, and it will appropriately reference that data and create a chart for you. So where we gain that overall understanding that the crime rate has dropped in the last years, it has consecutively dropped. So which is a high level, very good insight for us. So over like from these 40 lakhs of rows, this was this particular insight that that police officer was struggling for, that what is the history and what is the progress that has happened in the last couple of years. And this basically represents that overall crime rate has reduced further. Now, if you had been that specific police officer, what would be your next question? Your next question would be, what are the areas where we have been able to progress, and what are the areas where we still need to target? Which means, what are the crime rates? What are the crime categories where the crimes have reduced? And what are the crime categories where there is no significant improvements we have observed? So for that, uh, we can proceed further. So now here you will see a similar graph, but what is this? Here you will see a D flag, which means this is using the daily basis trends. And here we are also rolling the data for 365 days. So because of which you don't see this spike anymore, because the data has been rolled off. So for example, if you were to sum up, if you had a cost of around $25.8, so you would roll it out to $28. So similarly, here to see the smooth analysis, we are rolling out some of the data that it is picking from the data set, and then it is creating a final chart here. So this is nothing. The plt.title, you see this is nothing. This is just giving headers here. So rolling sum, so this is just giving a header here, and number of crimes is just giving a header here, and days, so it is just giving a header here. But the actual is this line graph. So hope everybody was able to understand till here. Now coming further, here we are able to see a dashboard for all the crimes that had happened in Chicago. So we from here we are able to see that arson basically dropped until 2014, but then it also started increasing after that. Similarly for assault crimes, and this is something bad, some crime known as battery, burglary, and here concealed carry license violation has was static all the years, but it has suddenly started increasing after 2014. And for criminal sexual assault, there is a variation here, and similarly you will see for all the categories here. But for most of the categories, you are able to see that the crime rate has dropped. It has basically dropped, except a few where like homicide, human trafficking, interference with public office. These are some of the crime rates which have increased. And being a police officer, you can choose to avoid the ones which have had a good progress so far, and then you can choose to target the other crimes that have happened. Now, how would further uh, data analysis help that police officer target these areas? So for example, let's take a look at this theft graph that you see. So there was a huge number of thefts that used to happen in 2006, but that have reduced to a good number in 2016. But after that, it's increasing slightly. So what is the strategy? What further data analysis that police officer can do around theft that he or she will be able to understand how to basically go about it. For example, what are the places in Chicago where the theft is very frequent? So first of all, as you know, like these are some of the insights that we targeted on our Olympics data set. Some basic questions like which is the location under Chicago state where the most thefts have happened. So you can choose to prioritize that area. And what are the time, duration, weekend, weekdays? What are the duration in terms of hour, like whether it was daytime, it was nighttime? When did most of the thefts happen? Whether it was nighttime around between 10 to 12. So if you see that there is a trend that most of the thefts happen between 10 to 12, then you can have your police officers be more proactive in that specific region to basically take care of such crimes. So that is how you can go about it. But now let's take a look at how this dashboard has been deployed. So here, if you'll take a look here, what we are doing is we are again performing a pivot table operation. So we are doing pivot table operations over crime data set using ID as our main field. We are using NumPy calculation here for the size, and we are choosing columns as primary type, which is primary type of crime. And then in index, it is going to use the date field, and it will fill a value 0 wherever there will be a blank row. After that, we are using the date index from by calculating out from this particular date time index that we had calculated above as well. Now here what we are doing is we are again using again ruling the data through 365 days, and this is the size basically. 1230 is the size, like 12 inches or 30 inches, and then subplots equals to true, which means these different charts would be plotted for every different uh, crime type that you will see. And then layout. So layout means like what kind of layout would be there. So each would have close to four like four. This is basically divided into 4 units. So each would have starting from -1 to 3, and it will share x means and share y means that it will print whatever is the value for x-axis and y-axis. So it sounds little opposite, but that is the case. So I will now play it. Yeah, so it generates like this. And here I don't have to spend much time analyzing all the data. I could quickly go through more than a GB of data and gain my insights just by covering up these few cells, which are 8 to 10 cells of data. After that, we have more dashboards, which are for number of crimes by type. So it shows that this is the rate for the crimes that the topmost crime was theft and the least most crime was ritualism, non-criminal, subject specified. Okay, I don't know what is this, but ritualism was the top, the bottom crime. And followed by this particular dashboard wherein we are able to see the crimes by location. So the most cases happen within residence, and then in other categories, then in apartment, sidewalk, parking lot, and the minimum cases happened in bars. All right, and here if you'll take a look at how we are plotting this chart, we are specifically grouping by this. We are basically focusing on location description column. Through that, we are basically plotting this graph in a descending order. And this is a bar graph. So if I'm not sure if I would put it as line, if it would change it appropriately or not. Yeah, so now it basically shows a line to me instead of bar graph. Now, this is also how you can basically go about it, but I think bar looked more meaningful. Yeah, this looks more meaningful. So similarly for this one, wherein we were using primary crime type column and we were using that in descending order. And if I were to use bar graph, what are the other graphs? If I were to use, let's say, pie chart, so will it be able to, okay, yeah, it displays that for me in a pie chart, wherein it shows most of the cases happened in the theft category, followed by battery, criminal damage, narcotics, other offense, burglary. And then here it basically sums up everything. So this is how basically data analysis can quickly help us analyze all of this. But if you had gone about all of this in a manual way, that would have been a tedious task because first of all, you could not have managed such huge amount of data in an Excel or any such tool. And then just by using the right code, you were able to analyze this data within maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes if you knew what code. You may take some time to write this code, but ultimately if you want to use it every year being a police officer, you want to use it across all the offices or the police stations, then it would optimize a lot of efforts for all of those non-technical people who have to rely upon these trends. So that was all. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions if you may have. I would also request Brother Mukesh to add more insights to this study, or if he wants to add anything further to help you understand more things about it. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions if you may have.
Thanks, Prashant. So this is a very interesting case study. It is downloaded from Kaggle. So Kaggle has notebooks to analyze it as well. The point where we want you to get to is that you should be able to download other data sets, see the existing notebooks, and do it yourself. The data analysis is fun where when you start doing it by just listening, it's a feel good factor. but you really won't enjoy it until you download it and do it yourself. So based on the poll, it seems like you're all of you are feeling fairly confident, and some just need time to do it yourself. So I want to take few minutes today, just quickly 5 minutes, since we are a small group, wanted to understand what is your expectation, what it is that you want to get out of this course. To work as a data analyst, or you just want to know more, or what is your motivation to do data analysis, so that we can see what topics to cover in the upcoming sessions. So if you want to unmute yourself and share uh, why do you want to do this data analysis, and that way we can advise better what case studies to do or what we should cover as part of these ongoing sessions.
Om Shanti, Brother Mukesh. A very beautiful session given by Prashant Bhai. I would say that I think this is the sixth session which you have presented, but for me it's the first. And if I talk about Python and data analysis, so I was not able to get the initials of it. I mean, whatever it takes to set up this lab and everything, I was not aware about it. But whatever I have seen, I mean, it's like how we can better segregate the data for our analysis purpose, and how we can drive the charts, different charts you have presented. So I mean, in case of this, it was a huge data spanning across 43 or so lakhs of rows and 23 or more than 23 columns. So definitely it was a huge task if I was supposed to do it with an Excel sheet, and you know downloading and uploading all those data is a huge task. So definitely, I mean, using this lab, we have made it very simpler, and just by using some of the functions that you have shown, which I'm not very much aware of, but I have seen it for the very first time, and I was surprised that, I mean, how beautiful it is, calculating the things and presenting it to the users, so that we can further drill down and further, we can take our decisions based on our data. I mean, it would be much more helpful for the police department, whoever would be, utilizing this data for driving down the charts further, like in which area they have to, drill down and do more improvements, and what are the areas where they do not need to focus much upon. So it was a beautiful analysis. I mean, I would like to get some more insights into it, so that I can catch up with this. So I think I would have to listen to the previous sessions. So Prashant Bhai, if you can help me with that, I mean the previous, or maybe I
Yeah,
can
sure.
connect
We
with
can
Sanjeev
connect
Bhai. Yeah,
one-on-one on that.
yeah. Maybe I can get in touch with Sanjeev Bhai as well, so that he can give me the previous links, so that I can look more into it. So as always, I mean, you are fabulous. You have done a great job, and you have made the thing simple. So my expectations, I mean, it's like whatever I am getting it, although I'm from a banking background, but it's a learning for me. So good to know. I mean, it's kind of knowledge enhancement in a different area. So that's all my expectation is, and it's going as per the expectation. So thank you for that. Om Shanti.
Thanks, Brother Anubhav. Anyone else wants to share their perspective? Because the more we know why you want to do this course, then that way we can help you in that journey. So request you to please unmute yourself and say, I want to do this course because I want to work as a data analyst, or I just want to learn a little bit more and understand application of Python, or I just want to, keep learning. So that way we know where to stop or start a new series of lectures for machine learning, or what it is that you want.
Hello everyone, I'm Damayanti. Om Shanti. Actually, I'm working on Python in auto.
We lost you, Damayanti.
Yeah, now audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
now you're audible.
Yeah, I'm working on Python, but specifically for automation process. But the basic level like pandas I'm using. But I just want to know what is more in Python available. Where can I use more Python? So that is my requirement actually. I didn't know the plot or how to plot the graphs and visualization. So my
Okay,
expectation is if I can grow on Python or I can use Python more in my automation process.
yeah, very
That
good question. So I will take that up, and I would request Brother Mukesh to add more. So see, Python can do everything that you can imagine. So it has lots and lots of libraries. So there is a library for operating system. You can perform all the operating system tasks that you use through user interface, through your mouse consoles. You can do it through your operating system libraries. Then we have a library known as Flask. So that helps you basically deploy some kind of local host applications, a UI for handling most of the command line aspects in a UI manner. And Flask is a service that helps you like launch some kind of web application services. So that is also something which I don't have a specific like insights on that, but yeah, I have used it for a couple of use cases. And then there are other libraries like Selenium. Then there are libraries around machine learning, natural language processing. So Python covers it all. So if there is any language that can cover like 90% of the aspects, I believe 99% of the aspects. So that is Python. But I would let Brother Mukesh add more about it as he has more insights.
Yeah. Can you elaborate more, like when you say automation, what are you automating so I can give more relevant examples and go into
actually
it? But yeah.
basically currently I'm automating the log thing like log processing actually. So we have a development team actually. We had the build team is there available. So in weekly basis, we have an build and after build, we have number of files like thousand and thousands files. And from that files, we automate the things and particularly upload those data in the log server in some systematic ways. And that will be made available to the developer or dashboard now in chat format. What is the any degradation? I'm basically working for the performance of the product. So we are tallying the data from the benchmark, taking the benchmark from certain build to another build. If there is any performance degradation, so we through this automation process we provide the data to the developer or whoever in the management. They look through the data and through the
Okay.
chart format. Right now we are not providing. We're giving in the Excel format. So from their Excel they are drilled down or and making like matching the things. If I can give in the graphical
Yeah,
format,
no,
it
and
will be more.
that's
Yeah.
good enough. So essentially, you're using it for data engineering to move
Yes.
and consolidate the data as well.
Yeah.
So there are two use cases at a very high level for Python. One is for data engineering, whether you're doing ETL or whether you're moving data or creating data pipelines. And the second is after you've moved the data, you've consolidated the data in one place, then you're analyzing those log files. So usually, there is like application level monitoring, and there's Prometheus and Grafana used for it. But you're probably using Python to just consolidate those log files, and then some other application must be reading those log files, visualizing it, calculating the metrics, like how many times the server went down or how many times this API failed, and you can typically build a dashboard based on it. But you're
Yes.
primarily using it for just collecting all the data for data engineering?
Yeah, we can future if I know about it, the how to data analysis, or we can move to that part. Actually, I could suggest right now data engineering. Yeah, you could say, and we are having the dashboard in PHP and all the other format, XML format.
I would suggest take a look at Prometheus and these are two open source projects. Those are commonly used. That way you can collect all the data and then Grafana can visualize it for you because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. It seems like you're doing something custom, but there are already open source projects for it. So I would strongly suggest take a look at Prometheus and Grafana. A lot of organizations they use as Elk Stack. Uh, Elk Stack is ELK. E is for Elastic. Elastic is also an open or used to be open source, but part of it is still open source, where you can search on huge amounts of data using Elastic search server. Then L is Logstash. These are all open source projects. And then K is for Kibana. Kibana is used for visualizing. So although you can do all this visualization in Python, but why do the work when you have open source tools who will already do it for you, build the dashboard and everything? So usually the thought process for organization is don't reinvent the wheel. Uh, Reuse whatever you have. And nowadays, there's pretty much a software product or an equivalent open source product for it. So before we go and build our own dashboard in Python, we'll in large organizations, that's what they'll do. Now, if the organization is very small, uh, they may not be aware, or for some reason they don't want to do it. They want extremely total lot of flexibility. Then they would tend to write their own scripts. Or sometimes they write their own scripts because they can charge a client and say, we did something custom for you. But if I was starting a project from scratch, I would not do it myself. If it's log data that is being analyzed, I would use probably Prometheus and Grafana. But that doesn't mean you can't do it in Python. You can certainly do it as well. But usually that's how organizations think and approach it.
Yeah. Basically, we are using Grafana also. So here I
Okay,
just going
excellent.
ahead. I'm just want to learn what is data analysis,
Yes,
and so
yes, yeah.
that it will
It's
help me
always
in my
good
career.
from
Yeah.
yeah, it's good from a learning perspective, but just want you to be aware because if you go and tell your company, I can do this in Python,
Yeah,
they'll
that's
say,
not
why?
good.
Why do you want to do it, right? And they will say, well, someone told me we can do everything in Python, but we are not doing it. Why? Because there's already something existing out there. So usually, for any ad hoc data analysis, right? Then you need to know how to do it in Python. You need to be able to visualize it, like this crime data set, right? If the police department in Mumbai or in Delhi or in any other city, they want to use that crime data and see. So how is this data set collected? In Chicago, what they do is they every time there's a incident, right? Someone calls and says, I heard a gunshot. Can you see what it is? Or someone will say, they got a phone call, or the police was patrolling and they noticed something. So every incident is logged. The collection of that log is reflected in the CSV file, right? And then every incident will have a location. So just like how we have PIN code, they have zip code over here, but it's the same concept, right? So they will have that zip code or PIN code and what location it is, what address it is. So then they can visualize it. So why they want to do this analysis, it's more ad hoc because their questions are unique to their data. They want to know, the police chief wants to know, do I need more police officers? In which area I should patrol more? In which areas I should at what time of the day this area there's maximum crime from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. So I want to make sure from 1:30 itself the police start patrolling, right? So at what time and what location I should optimally use my resources. There are fixed number of police officers, right? So how should I allocate them in which region at what time to make sure the crime rate is reduced, right? Because if a police car is in that area, thief is smart. They're not going to go and rob in that area because the police is constantly patrolling. So in this case, it's very unique and specific to them. So they're not going to use any software. But eventually, if it becomes a large police force and they want to use the same software across, then they will build their own application and distribute it. So it depends from application to application how you want to do it. But as part of learning, you should know how to do it, right? You should be able to know how to analyze it. Many times, one of the most common application is which data scientist or data analyst would do is they want to forecast your company growth because the CIO wants to, or the CEO wants to go in a press release and say, I'm expecting a growth of 3%, right? And this is what we're expecting. How do they do that analysis? There's no software for it as such. So that's all ad hoc analysis. That's pure data analysis work. So that's how they do it. Uh, like if you see in India, right, we calculate the expected GDPR growth. How do we calculate that? It's all data analysis as well. There's no software for it. So you have to use Python for it. So because you're calculating all the input data points, which give an indication of what is the growth across multiple manufacturing sectors, including agriculture, software, services, and so on. So they calculate all those numbers to then predict what was the GDPR for last year and what is going to be the GDPR for next year. And that way they can plan ahead the budget and everything. So there's a lot of data analysis, there's a lot of value for it. The best thing is you start out small. What I liked about this course was the way rather Prashant approached it, spending a lot of time on the thinking process. See, all these notebooks and data sets, they're all there on Kaggle. If you just Google crime data set, you'll get the notebook itself, you'll get the data set itself. The reason we selected this was because when I came across this data set and the visualization itself is kind of very visually appealing. It gives you that wow factor that I can do this. So it just creates interest. But once you get the hang of it, there are so many other different type of data sets. What I would suggest is depending on, if you have any domain knowledge, like for those who are in life sciences, there's so much genomic data, and there are Python libraries like BioPython where you can analyze the gene structure and do a lot of things. If you're in financial data, there are a lot of different financial data sets as well. So that way you will understand it, and in an interview you can say, "Oh, I've done this data analysis. This is how we do it," and so on. So that way it will help you because you want to be able to say, "Yes, I not only know I can use Python for data engineering to automate movement of data from one system to the other system. But I can also use Python for analyzing that data." So in your case, the more you do Python, the better it is because it'll give you an exposure as to what is the power of Python do, what are the different libraries. So any exposure to predictive analytics is always helpful. It definitely helps. So we'll try to cover that in the upcoming sessions as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other thoughts, comments?
Yes, right. Thanks, Prashant, for sharing this wonderful knowledge. So, Mukesh, like as you said, started this with to get hands-on on Python. This latest kind of data analysis and data science. That's what we want to do that. And certainly, we got good hands-on on Python and as well as data analysis. Probably going forward, I mean, probably you can give us some guidance or input, like how exactly, I mean, it's happening in the companies. Like traditionally into projects of like customization in .NET and all, where we used to, build these codes for departments and all. And this I see as more as a probably individual analyst work, like maybe somebody alone is doing or maybe getting. Point is how it's happening actually in the companies, and how team as a team it's being shared the complete life cycle for this project as a data analyst. That's just something that I want to know. And to the broader aspect, like first we want to have the complete understanding for this data analyst part, and then probably slowly move to other aspects of data science learnings. Yes, these are the two things that we want to understand.
Thanks, Ashish. So, Ashish, most of the time, data analysis, the challenge, as you see, right, the size of data grows. So, you need that computing power, right? We are doing it on a laptop, it's still acceptable, no big deal. But as the size of the data grows, you need that compute engine. Now, we can always get one big VM and do it. But some of these data sets, like when it comes to life sciences and the genomic data sets, just as an example, you're talking about GBs and TBs of data. Putting it in one virtual machine with large CPU memory just doesn't do it, right? It won't perform, especially when it comes to deep learning as we do more predictive analytics. So doing data analysis needs a lot of computing power. So what companies do is you need to use distributed processing. What I mean by distributed processing is you're not doing processing on one server, but you're distributing the processing of data across multiple servers in a cluster or multiple nodes in a cluster. So that's called cluster computing. And usually, most of the time, it's always easier to build that cluster on the cloud. When big data projects started happening about 10, 12 years back, there was an open source project called Apache Spark. It started from University of Berkeley. Now they've created a company called Databricks, and Databricks provides you that cluster where you can pick and choose the size of VM and you can build the cluster. Do you want 3 nodes in it? Each node is nothing but a server, but you're combining those nodes in a cluster essentially to be able to distribute the processing of the distribute the analysis of that data. So one of the main primary reasons why Python became so popular is because how Python is implemented. Python is a functional language and an object-oriented language. Most of the times, right, when we do system programming, you're building a new system, they will use C++ or Java. They need object-oriented to make sure you're strongly typing the data and your data types are not, easily changing and so on. You need more reliability in that system. So object-oriented programming makes sense. But for your data analysis, your data type could vary as well. You need that flexibility. That was one reason. So you didn't need really an object-oriented programming language. But the most primary reason why Python became popular is because you can use it in a distributed computing in a distributed computing manner, and that's the primary reason why Python is so popular. And pandas, my brother Prashant, we took pandas is because it brought in this concept of a data frame. So behind the scenes, when you're creating this data frame, and if you look at the history of Spark, if you read a little bit about Spark, what was proposed by Spark was a resilient data frame, an RDD. Essentially, what it's doing is saying, I have, let's say, 24 GB or 16 GB on one node in a cluster, but I have 10 nodes in a cluster. So effectively, I have 16 times 10, 160 GB of memory. Of course, some of it goes in the operating system, but at a very high level. Instead of using one machine with 160 GB, it's going to be very expensive. It's a lot cheaper to distribute it. So what Apache Spark does is it allows you using pandas, create a data frame. That data frame can load entire of that data in memory, but behind that scenes, that data frame is putting and storing that data across the different nodes in the cluster, right? So it's like as if you have one machine with 160 GB memory, but actually it is 10 nodes in the cluster, and that memory is being pooled and shared across within that data frame. So that's what makes Python, gives its power to do distributed processing. So most of the time, organizations will use Databricks cluster using Jupyter notebooks. More recently, organizations are using Snowflake, and Snowflake is another competing product which is used as a cloud data warehouse, and they want to be that compute engine. So the trend is for organizations to consolidate their compute engines, because right now they use Snowflake as their compute engine for data warehousing, where you're doing all the aggregations, you're creating your dimensions, analyzing the metrics, where you're doing more SQL type of processing. So another way to do data analysis is using SQL, structured query language. But Databricks allows you to mix Python, mix SQL, and mix R as well. R is another programming language which a lot of researchers use in academic fields. So most probably your organizations probably would be using Databricks or considering Databricks to do all the analytics, probably including descriptive, but definitely for predictive analytics as well. But that's the common trend. So if you want to do data analysis and if you have Databricks, you'll definitely get the job. But uh, I would strongly suggest download or look at Databricks. We had one session on, it was a very 1 hour, I think 1 hour session on data architecture. But we would be glad to cover more of it, because once you start looking into Databricks, you'll keep hearing Lakehouse, and for a beginner, it might be a little confusing. I'd be glad to cover what is Lakehouse and revisit that data architecture. But that's what most of the clients are using nowadays. Does that answer your question, Ashish?
Yeah, thanks, Mukesh bhai. It gives insight into that. Really coming back to your, question, like, obviously, like we want to get hands-on on and data analysis aspects, which probably we have already, uh, we feel confident. Going forward, probably we want to understand the uh, life cycle or probably the latest. And one part is that, hands-on and downloading some more data sets by ourselves and creating some graph or doing some analysis. That would be one part. And another part would be like, to understand how exactly it's being used in the actual environment of a company, that we get a job ready, or that times, but the environment, different environments, probably on cloud, or how it's being packaged, how it's being, uh,
Yeah,
executed as a
mostly it is cloud. Very few organizations have it on.
hello. I have lost the voice. Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah, I can hear you. Seems Brother Mukesh dropped out due to network issues. Maybe let him rejoin.
Prashant, I would also like, suggest one thing. Whatever we are going to cover for, coming sessions, like with
Mhm.
like in next session, what we will be doing. So if you can share that and give some, input, so that we do some our homework also. That would be great. Like if some new topic is coming, so probably we can go and read that, or maybe be great for
Yeah,
everyone.
sure. So I will try to share that agenda on the WhatsApp so that you all can familiarize yourself in advance, and then we can go about it. I think that is a good idea.
Right. And some, if some data sets is there, probably we can just try to
Yeah, I will
analyze that
also share
also.
the link for today's data set. So you will
I think
also find a detailed.
Mukesh bhai have shared it in the chat box. We
Okay,
can
okay,
download
fine.
from
So
Kaggle or
what I
directly.
can do is I can share maybe the notebook that we have covered today for your reference.
Yeah,
So
sure.
if you have the Jupyter Lab installed or the Anaconda installed, you can probably use that and import this notebook directly and explore around. So that will also help you reduce your efforts and directly use this notebook.
Notebook also you have downloaded from Kaggle.
No, no, this is something I have customized myself. So although the instructions are already mentioned there, but that is somewhat outdated. So I had to basically update some of the code, then use it. So I'm trying to see how I can basically download it.
Yeah, I got disconnected.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, okay. My phone discharged. But as long as all the organizations they're moving on the cloud. So as long as one cloud, and what is a notebook, and what Databricks is or what Snowflake does, that's more than enough. And if the thinking process is important, how to analyze the data, what questions you can create to analyze it. Like why did this happen? How did this happen? Those type of that thinking process is a critical part of the learning.
The actual use cases which particularly an organization wants, whatever insights they want and why they want it. It will help them.
Any other questions? We can end the session with meditation. Sister Raki won't be able to join. Sorry.
Mukesh bhai,
Uh,
one
we
suggestion while
Yes.
you were disconnected, I was just I was saying that like whatever we are going to cover in the next session, so if we can give some hint so that we can get prepared if some aspects of theory that needs to be looked at, we'll do that. Or probably if we are planning to analyze a particular data set, whatever info you have, so that we are also get ready a little bit. That I was suggesting to Prashant. And besides that, also, Mukesh, like if somebody from our group, if they want to, that like you mentioned from Kaggle, we can download. So similarly, some other can do hands-on on our own and do some analysis and all. So if that can be shared, like kind of like homework, you can say, during the week, so that will besides what we are already, what Prashant is sharing, so that extra can guide us because there are a whole lot of or all other things we can get overwhelmed. But if you can guide us, okay, you can do particular what we are covering in the class, and you can cover this probably this data set or do that kind of thing. That will
Yeah.
be a kind of a guided journey towards like analysis and more to data science. Be helpful.
Yeah, no, Ashish, so sorry. So Ashish, that's why we want the feedback to decide where to take what should be the trajectory of these learning sessions. I had sent a book on the Python WhatsApp group. And if you look at the contents in that book, we pretty much covered most of the sections. We can take more and more case studies, which will then extend for across week. But what we find is that students, they need to start doing it themselves. At this point, we don't know how many students are actually doing it. I know Manjul and few others, since they've been interacting and giving answers, we know they are doing it. But we don't know if students are just listening or they are doing it because we just don't know. So the more we know where they are in their learning journey, and since it's a small group, we can be very adaptive and we can plan better ahead. But our challenge is we don't get that interaction, so we don't know if students are doing it, they're not doing it, they want to do it. So we don't know if doing more case studies would help, because at some point the students, they have to put in their effort to do it. Kaggle is a good resource. There's so many case studies. That's one option. Second is there are a couple of books, and we download all 3 books from the Library Genesis project. So if you type in Library Genesis, there are a lot of books, free books. Any book you want, you can download it free. So if you take any of the books on exploratory data analysis, not predictive, which includes a little bit of SQL, which includes a little bit of visualization and using pandas. There's one book on pandas as well, but we want to cover a little bit of everything. So you know how visualization is done, which Brother Prashant already covered. We want you to know, how you can process data in a data frame. That is a key requirement that a data analyst should know. So we've covered it as well. So we can do more and more, but it won't help if students are not doing it. So that's why we're figuring it out. Should we do more example studies, or should we move to, more predictive, or look at other applications of Python? Like how can you use ChatGPT using Python, using APIs, and so on. So we are keeping it quite open to be adaptable and flexible based on the feedback that we get from the participants.
I think Mukesh, unless and until we are doing, hands-on or doing that, these whatever is sharing, until we do by ourselves, we won't be able to, understand completely. Because when I do it and I try to, I get some stuck up, and then to do that research, and then I am able to complete this. So that's one part.
Exactly. So students have to do it. Because no matter how many examples Brother Prashant covers, the student will never feel confident. Even if you do this for 6 months, that confidence will still not come, because the example we always give is you can't learn how to swim by watching swimming YouTube videos for 6 months. To swim, you have to jump in the water and learn it. Programming is exactly the same way. You can't learn programming by just listening and listening and listening. You'll get a good feel of it, but once you start writing the code, you'll be like, oh no, where did I miss? I missed on a little bit of indentation. I missed that. So it's part of the learning. You have to do it. And once you do one or two, you pretty much, it's very easy in a way. Python is very easy. You'll get a quick hang of it. So that's why we want our participants to jump into it. Any questions you have, you can post it on the Python group. I'm running into these issues. I monitor it. Brother Prashant monitors it. So we've got team in the background who will help you and answer those questions. But right now we don't get any questions. So we assume either students are doing it and they understand everything, or they're not doing it. That's why no questions. We don't know. So that's why I think we've got enough case studies. The crime data sets, if students just download that notebook, Brother Prashant can share it. Just play it yourself, ask questions, right? Ask question, how can I do this using this data set? And we'll cover that as well. But at this point, the best use of time would be for students to actually, the participants to actually do it. Because if you don't do it now, it'll just keep on going and going. There won't be much benefit to it.
Shanti, Mukesh Bhai and Prashant Bhai and everyone. Due to time constraint, keep my points short. Can I share a few points? Just few.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I work for a company. We had a so I'm working on C++, but I started my career with Foxbase, DBase, FoxPro, Paradox, and VB Plan, something like the Excel long back. So I even though I am not working on the RDBMS or DBA, but I keep my knowledge up to date. I just keep learning about it. In the company, they keep moving me from software development to R&D. Wherever I'm required, they keep moving me. So the R&D team is planning to do radar data analysis using machine learning and artificial intelligence. That if I learn this Python and artificial intelligence, machine learning, ML, then maybe I can ask them, even though I am the software development at the moment, in future, I may ask them to put me in the R&D team. So that's my plan. So if of machine
Yeah, no, this
learning
is
and
perfect. Yeah, no, this is the area to be and take that opportunity because it will enhance your career aspect as well, where your career prospect will be a lot better because you know Python AI as well. So I would strongly suggest, our Python recordings cover Python from a beginner that school children can also get started with it. So I think, we should be equipped. We are planning to add more instructors who can teach machine learning as well. Just for curiosity, is everyone on this call BK or is anyone non-BK? I don't know if because it seems like most are BKs, but I wasn't sure. So just quickly validating.
I'm a BK for many years.
Okay. How about Sanket? Manjul, are you BK as well?
Sanket here. I'm not, but I have attended few
Okay.
of the meditation session, but I'm not BK.
Okay. No worries, Sanket. Because anytime we say BK, BK is for Brahma Kumari. So we do meditation as part of Brahma Kumari. So that's why I
Yeah,
was asking that.
no
So,
worries.
but no, we don't make any distinction between BK or non-BK.
Oh yeah,
It
I do
it
understand.
is it is the same for us. We don't impose our views on anyone. That is never the objective. So that's why we want to make sure we respect everyone's views and beliefs as well. Okay,
Sure.
cool. Yeah. So Ramesh, I would say yeah, it's a good area to be in. We are looking for instructors as well. If not, then I will do some of the sessions, or I'll cover the high level overview. Maybe let's see who the instructor is. Otherwise, at least we can get started with it. The whole challenge with predictor analytics is most of the instructors they go into the math, and the math is what throws us off, where you feel it is complex. But the right way to learn it is see it as a black box. You don't have to understand each and every detail of it. High level theory is good. So if someone is talking, you are knowledgeable and talking about it. But you don't have to get into the intimate mathematical equations and everything, because simply it's a good way to show off that you know stuff. Practically not useful. So we want to cover uh, machine learning from a black box approach. And the reason why I'm saying it is because I did my PhD in machine learning. I've gone through those torturous equations to only ask myself, was it important for me to learn this? And the answer was no. Even if I didn't know this mathematical equation, I can still use it. So why did I spend my time learning it and thinking it's very difficult? Because it gives you the perception it's very complicated, difficult. And a lot of these job postings will say you need a master's or a PhD. Not true. It's misleading. So a good machine learning instructor will teach you from a black box approach where you don't have to necessarily go into the details of the math. You have to see it as a black box, as a machine. What are the knobs that you can use to tune that machine? Like just like a car, you don't need to know how the engine works, where's the compressor and all that. High level there's an engine, but whether it's a V6 engine and how the piston works, we don't care. We just want to drive. Same way, that's how we want to teach, and that's how we want to learn machine learning, where you have the knobs. Okay, if I change this, this is what the importance is. These are the parameters. So high level theory helps, but getting too much into the depth using mathematical equations is counterproductive. It gives you a sense that this is too difficult, complex, and most of the time people will abort learning. So that's an opportunity because not everyone is doing it. But
If you skip the math and focus on what are those parameters for tuning, high level, how does it work? Why does it work? Then it's very easy and quick to learn machine learning algorithms, and you would then be able to know when to use which machine learning algorithm. That is the key part, because pretty much every algorithm is already implemented. Your emphasis is not on implementation of the algorithm. In universities, they'll do a 2-year master's course and everything. I've done all of that. Honestly, it's an old way of teaching, and half of it is because they've been doing it that way, and the system just carries on. It's all about money. It's making money as well. But in reality, you can learn it really fast if you get the basic concepts and using this black box approach. When to use this algorithm, high level, how does this algorithm work? What are the parameters to fine tune the algorithm? If you can answer those 3 questions, you're good. You know machine learning. No one is going to ask you, okay, what is the equation to do implement this algorithm? Implementation is not the focus. The focus is how you can apply the algorithm to your data set. Which algorithm is best to use the data set, or which combination of algorithms you can apply in the data set. As long as you know that, that's that's more than that is what a good machine learning engineer would do, because he or she knows more about the different type of machine learning algorithms. Don't box yourself saying, I need to know each and every part of the algorithm, how it works. No, think of it as a function. It's a black box. That way, you can learn a lot more in a short amount of time, and still you'll be highly effective in your job, and still you'll be able to clear any interview, because you'll show how many algorithms you know and what is a basic concept. If we can teach it in that way, we can cover a lot more in less time, and that would make you effective no matter what your role or your job is. So we will try to cover that as well.
Thanks, brother, and the team. Om Shanti.
I think everyone spoke except for Manjul. Manjul, do you want to share your insights?
Om Shanti. Actually, I didn't spoke because I don't have an IT career right now. I'm
No problem.
learning Python because I actually want to learn, and I am actually exploring something for myself. I actually have a teaching background, but I don't have an IT background.
No worries. I think based on the assignments, you're pretty much catching up fairly well. You're participating in everything. So I hope you're enjoying and learning as well,
Yeah, yeah,
because moving into IT career is not a big deal, especially if you have a teaching background experience.
yeah.
Brother Anurag, for those who may not know, is not from IT as well. He's from mechanical or some other background when he started teaching. But
Okay.
he got that opportunity, he took it. A lot of people, they are from non-IT and they get into IT. So definitely, I think you're picking up fairly well. So keep continuing. Do you want to change your career into IT at some point, or are you keeping options open?
I'm keeping my options open because right now I'm not working. Though I have a 6 to 7 years teaching experience, I'm BTech, MTech in computer science, but I'm exploring something ki how I can get into IT or make the best that I can do.
So you actually have an IT education, right? I mean, in sense, computer science. So
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
you want to get into the game, we recommend Salesforce. So we had series of sessions on Salesforce,
Yeah.
because you need to prove your credentials that you understand IT, because as you know, academic is very theoretical. Just because you did masters, it doesn't help you get the job, because what they
Yeah.
teach and what the industry needs are very different. Because the people who are teaching, they've never probably worked in any company, so they still teach stuff which is 20 years old. Some of it is not even relevant.
Mhm.
We don't use data structures because we can put the data in a NoSQL database. So why
Yeah.
would I put it in memory? I mean, the theory is good, helpful, but
Mm-hmm.
that theory is good and helpful if you want to, design your own new database or a new operating system. How many new
Yes.
operating systems came in the last 3 years? I don't know, one or two maybe. How many new software products come in last 3 years? Thousands. So
Yeah.
should we emphasize our focus on building software products or using those software products?
Yeah.
Market and job pays on using algorithms instead of creating it. But our academic system is flawed where they focus on teaching things which help you do things, which is good for the science perspective, but not from a job perspective.
Yeah.
So I would say keep learning, more exposure you get. And as you know, you're a teacher. The more you teach, the more you learn as well. So if you want
Yeah.
to be able to teach any part of it, the best way to learn is to teach as well. Brother Prashant, he's doing the same. He's a very humble soul who's always saying, "I don't know. Let me look into it." When you say "I don't know," it's equivalent to saying, "I don't know today, but I'm willing to learn. I'm smart enough. Tomorrow, I'll know the answer, but I don't know today." That's perfectly okay because that attitude is important. When you're going for job interviews or where you are in a company, Brother Ramesh can tell you, it's not important to know everything. What is important to know your attitude and your self belief that even if you don't know it today, you will be able to find out in the next day or two or in the week or in the coming days. That attitude, that self belief, that confidence is more important than the actual knowledge you have.
Yeah.
And if you truly believe in yourself, it reflects when you give the interview. So we want to inculcate that self belief because we always say if you don't believe in yourselves, don't expect others to believe in you because even you don't believe in yourself.
Mm.
So, so keep doing what you're doing. This would be an ongoing series of learning. So there'll be
Yeah.
plenty to learn. But if you want to get into the job scene and everything, I would suggest take a look at Salesforce. Now, it doesn't use Python, it uses Apex, which is an object oriented language. And
Okay.
if anyone needs object oriented language concepts, we can cover that using Python. The concept is more important because if you understand what are object oriented concepts, then whether you do it in Java, whether you do it in C++, whether you do it in Python, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Polymorphism is polymorphism, encapsulation
Yeah.
is encapsulation. So the concepts remain the same.
No, I'm familiar with OOPS concepts and everything. Okay, fine. I will definitely go through Salesforce.
So just to summarize, based on what the feedback I've heard is that, students, the participants, they need to practice more. We'll try to shift more towards machine learning because that's where the value of Python truly comes in. We'll start with the basics of machine learning, a little bit of theory as well. It will be theoretical and practical because right now you're doing pretty much everything is practical mostly. But in machine learning, it will be like half theory, half practical. The practical is you've got one function which does everything. But what does that function do? What is a little bit theory around it? What are those parameters to that function? Why is that parameter what it is? That would need to be covered in the theory. So we'll try to arrange for an instructor, or until we arrange, myself, Brother Prashant, we can jump in. Or if any one of you want to be a participant, because what we can do is we can cover the theory and say, okay, can you try this example so we can share with others? Unfortunately, I don't get the time to do the example. So if any of you wants to volunteer and learn and practice it, and then in the session we cover it with the audience, that would also work as well.
Certainly, Mukesh, that would be a great idea to do our hands-on and while teaching.
Yeah.
So I'll volunteer for that.
But yeah, that'll be great. Are all of you familiar with SQL? Like what is SQL, structured query language?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Because then you can always do a little bit of analysis using SQL, but the power of data analysis comes with combining some of the data doing SQL. Like if you want to join the data set and filter it, you're doing inner join, outer join, and some of it doing Python. So Databricks or Jupyter Notebooks allows you to mix and match in Databricks. So as long as you've got SQL on your CV, basic SQL statements, that's good enough. So we try to cover a little bit of theory and we'll start a little bit more with the machine learning applications until we find the full-time training, but at least we'll get started with it. So that way you have some exposure. And Ashish, if you're volunteering, we can send you some books and say, okay, download this code and see if it works. How it works, why it works, we'll explain that as well. Or at least we've got some functional code snippet which we can share with the team and work on that. Okay. I know we went way over the time, but this feedback was very important for us. Uh, I don't know if you need a meditation session, brother Prashant can cover it, or those who are in BKs. All of them are equally capable to conduct it. So if anyone wants to conduct the session, please free to do so, or if you're already late, then we can skip it for today. Anyone wants to conduct today's meditation?
Probably 1 or 2 minutes of silence will do, I think, brother.
Uncle always that does great magic. So let's spend 1 minute in silence, but I'll just cover the theory of silence. Silence is not no noise outside. Inner silence is where you're slowing down your thoughts and the spacing between the thoughts. That gives you the experience of inner silence. If I have 10 thoughts in 1 second, I cannot experience inner silence because my mind is flooded with thoughts. The more thoughts per minute, and if it exceeds your processing capacity of your soul, then we experience it as stress. Less thoughts per minute, more spacing between those thoughts gives you that experience of silence. And if you can focus on just one thought, and you can repeat that thought, but you're staying experiencing in that in that moment of that thought. For example, a powerful thought is, I'm a peaceful soul. And then experience that peace, experience that silence. But then the mind will drift. And again, you find it drifting, repeat it. I'm a peaceful source. I'm a peaceful soul. So stay in the experience of that one thought in that moment. That's what will help you experience inner silence. Try it yourself, right? Try to silence your mind. So outside it may be noisy. You might hear the traffic and everything. Don't let that bother you. This is about inner silence. Even if there's outside noise going on, very loudy environment, noisy, no problem. You can still experience inner silence. So it suggests you try it out. Take one thought. I'm a peaceful soul. I'm a happy soul. A positive thought, and experience that. If you do that for a minute, you will gain something. It'll be a valuable minute. So we'll try that right now. Okay, thank you very much, all of you. Hope you experience silence. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.